ain't that you can't see, cause you can find it, homes, it's that you don't want to. You cope by putting the blinders on. I've been trying to find some kind of way, but I've kind of known that y'all.
Welcome to 3 Count Commentaries. Today we're going to delve a little bit into a miscommunication. Cody Rhodes tweeted out a point that was then taken out of context by the wrestling media, and it is ridiculous. Cody Rhodes tweeted out on August the 23rd. Facts are all out there to see. Without Brandy or I, it wouldn't exist, meaning AEW. Look no further than some of the infrastructure in place or even half the names of the events. Tony, the Bucks, Kenny, Jericho, Dana, Hangman, Pioneers. I've moved on to the next stage for me, but beautiful memories. People started to say that Cody Rhodes believes that AEW wouldn't exist without him. It's a miscommunication. His tweets gives credit to Tony, the Bucks, Kenny, Jericho, etc. But they focused on the first sentence, which was the facts are all out there to see. Without Brandy or I, it wouldn't exist. That's what they focused on. Ironically, as a matter of fact, it probably shouldn't be ironic. Just 3 days before he tweeted that, Cody tweeted out, I did not create AEW. I was a big part of creating and managing it. Proud of it. Bucks and I, Brandy, Hangman, all signed at the same time. Kenny signed after his New Japan obligations finished, I believe 2 months later. We all had and did our part. Of course, Tony, Jericho also. So people got real big mad at Cody. Because without Brandy or I, it wouldn't exist. He dared to tweet that with his plastic teeth. And at this point, people got real mad. Now, there was a split of the fan base because some people actually believe it. Some people actually said it. Look, I have no horse in the race. I don't care about the origins of AEW. It doesn't really matter that much. It seems to me to be more of a thing where the stars aligned. And we're going to talk about that, too. Because it seems like some people don't give Cody enough credit. And some people want to give Cody too much credit over, it's almost like a Stan Lee situation. Did Stan Lee really create Spider-Man, or did he co-create Spider-Man? Or did he not do much at all except just name him Spider-Man? There's just almost no way of knowing for sure. But Tony Khan tweeted out in 2019 about an interview on the origins of AEW. This is from Brandon Thurston. He says, on the origin of AEW, Tony Khan's wrestling project that ended up being named All Elite Wrestling was in the works months before All In happened on September the 1st, 2018. Wall Street Journal was inaccurate on that point in this article. So Wall Street Journal did a history of AEW, and they, of course, probably gave it the credit to All In. Tony Khan said, I explained that to them pretty clearly in the interview, to be fair. I officially started on the project that became AEW on April 6th, 2018, when I saw my friend Kevin Riley at a party in Beverly Hills and said that I was interested in creating a wrestling league plus working together. Kevin Riley, I believe, is the guy who used to work at TNT. So, all right, here's the thing. Some people have claimed over and over again that Tony Khan had this idea since childhood of wanting to run his own wrestling promotion. So what? I mean, just because he had that dream doesn't mean he was actually going to pursue it. At some point, and there was a most interesting jump-off point to AEW, and that was the question that was asked to Dave Meltzer about whether Ring of Honor could sell out a building with Cody and the Bucks, etc. This was the challenge. The challenge that Cody took up from Dave Meltzer and said that he could sell out a building. It was Cody, it was the Bucks. They pooled their money together and they ran a show called All In. That was a massive success. Shortly after All In, I believe it was the Bucks that got into contact with Tony Khan, and therefore the creation of AEW came to pass. That's sort of the origin story. You know, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Does it really make sense? I mean, to ask that question, really. I mean, it's one guy's money because the Cody and the Bucks, they were great. They had one great show, but it's one show. What could they do beyond maybe doing another show the next year? With the money that they got from Tony Khan, they were able to launch their own promotion. But to that point, you could say AEW wouldn't exist without Ring of Honor, because it was Ring of Honor's talent using Ring of Honor's production stuff that ran a show that wasn't labeled Ring of Honor, that was successful, that gave proof of concept to Tony Khan that this could actually work. Now, the idea that I had this idea in 2018, it's like, yeah, great. That's great. Now, how come you were not involved in All In? Okay? I mean, it was really, you had the idea, but you didn't have the star power. You didn't have anything. Like, the stars basically just aligned because you needed all of the different pieces, to get this thing to work. You need Tony Khan because he's the financier. He's the guy with the money. You need the Bucks and Cody because they were sort of the star power. You needed Jericho because he was the biggest star that was going to participate in AEW, at least at the time of signing. Right? The time that the company started, Jericho was the biggest star. You needed New Japan because that's where the Bucks came from, and that's where their fan base came from. And the same thing can be said for Kenny Omega. So Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks, they were big stars in Ring of Honor, but they were bigger stars in New Japan, kind of. They weren't huge in Japan, but they were bigger stars from New Japan. Let's put it like that. More of their fans knew their stuff from New Japan than they knew it from Ring of Honor. The Bullet Club was popular. They were selling a ton of t-shirts and all that kind of stuff. All of that helped. There was no magic bullet that created AEW, but it certainly would not exist if Tony Khan had not put the money up. So that's one of the most important things. Some people have thinking that Cody can be kind of egotistical, but it's a simple miscommunication. He was responding to somebody saying that he really didn't have that much to do with it. And people have continued saying that he didn't have much to do with it, despite all the evidence otherwise. Again, Cody was the face of the company for like 2 years. You couldn't do an interview about AEW if you didn't talk to Cody. He was just the guy. He was negotiating contracts. He was bringing guys in. He was suggesting talent. He was helping on creative. To say that he wasn't doing anything is wrong. Just like to say that Tony Khan had nothing to do with it is wrong. Just to say like the Young Bucks had nothing to do with it is wrong. The idea that there would be an AEW without Cody Rhodes is false. You need everybody. Just like, hey, you needed some of the ancillary characters to make anything work. Most people are not successful purely on their own. They may have had an idea, or they may have had the money, or they may have had the talent, but it takes the pairing of that with somebody who has something else in order to make it work. You got a great idea, you come across somebody who's got some money to put it in comic book form. Hey, I got an idea for a character, but I don't know how to draw. How do I, you talk to the artist and you two create the look of the character together. The character had the artist has a character because they can draw, but they can't write for shit. So you can draw any character that you want. Todd McFarlane is number one when it comes to this. He can draw Spawn. He even wrote Spawn a little bit, but Todd McFarlane is not a writer. His Spawn writings are shit. Or at least they're boring because he's not a writer. But if you put a writer there, now things get better. Somebody can create a voice for Spawn. Somebody can create arcs for Spawn. And that's really the thing here, is that AEW is proof of concept came from All In, the show. AEW does not exist without All In. AEW does not exist if Tony Khan doesn't get in contact with the Bucks and they talk Cody and Kenny Omega into doing it. It just doesn't happen. You need everything that did happen to happen. To say that it would have existed Anyway, it's nonsense. The biggest thing that helped it is Tony Khan knowing somebody. That's how they were able to get on TV. So there's a lot of stuff there, a lot of little links in the chain that if you broke it, it wouldn't work. Okay? You had to have somebody who knew something about running a wrestling company. That was Cody. You had to know somebody who knew something about marketing. That would be the Young Bucks. You need to know somebody who could be trusted in ring. You had to have somebody who has some name value. Somebody who could be trusted in ring, Kenny Omega. Somebody who has some name value, Chris Jericho. So you need to have a little bit of everything in order to get it off the ground. So it's simple. It was a miscommunication. And people are very upset with them. And to say that we've seen a similar thing right now is with CM Punk. It is absolutely the exact same. There's AEW before Punk showed up, and then there's AEW afterwards. Just like there's WWF before the first WrestleMania and the WWF after. WWF before Hulk Hogan got there and the WWF afterwards. WWF before the Attitude Era, WWF afterwards. That's how eras work. There's a big change. Somebody or something happened that flipped things. And now, things will never be the same again. You can't go back. You can only just try to recreate stuff. So AEW is in 3 years have gone through an era. The Cody and the EVPs, their era is done. Now it's Punk and Tony and the Wild Wild West, and there's a lot of stuff going on backstage. And a lot of people are giving Cody credit for that. Hey, look at what happened when Cody left. Is a tweet that I've seen quite a few times. Cody leaves AEW. All of a sudden, these guys are fighting each other. These guys are arguing all the time. And it's like, well, maybe a lot of that stuff was going on anyway, but they were able to more keep it under control and to keep it quiet. But now it's out there. It's out there for everybody to see. All right, so enough preamble. Let's get back to it. Let's get into this. Let's delve into this nonsense of people being very angry at Cody over a miscommunication. He's back in the Fed, getting cheered. Only two things he ever wanted. Making boatloads of cash on top of it. And still being an insecure fuck. Oh, God. He's insecure. Somebody says, are you vanity searching yourself? No, jackass. The guy added him. That's why he responded. The only thing he missed was that his dad was Dusty Rhodes. This man has lost his head. Oh, God. Oh, buddy. What did Cody ever do to these people? That's what I want to know. Well, I guess I know what Cody did to them. He hurt their feelings and he left their favorite wrestling company. Will this next stage ever include you refraining from making this exact tweet every 2 months? Every time that you've indeed of a little self-esteem boost, or no? Indeed. I guess in need, and it was corrected till indeed. And of course, everybody is going to argue. Here's one of them. TK almost bought Impact in 2017. He pitched the idea for AEW to the Bucks and Cody, and they didn't take it seriously, except Matt. TK got Jericho and Ross on board. Then the Bucks and Cody was last. TK had the names for Dynamite and Rampage in old notebooks. So AEW does exist, sans Cody. That's nonsense. Okay? Even if some of this stuff might be true about who signed on first, who had the idea, yada, yada, yada. The bottom line is, when AEW was formed, one of the first people you saw pushed to the front was Cody Rhodes. Okay? That's just kind of how it is. Again, you don't need to take my word for it. Just go look at some of those old AEW press conferences, some of those old AEW interviews. You will see Cody's name all over it. You'll see Cody there. When they're talking about what kind of promotion AEW is going to be, it's Cody. It was Cody who came out and started talking about, and with him and the Young Bucks, about health insurance for the wrestlers and, Cody was explaining why unions would be a bad idea. It was Cody and talking. Cody fucking talking all the time. And now that Cody doesn't work there anymore, he had nothing to do with it. It existed before him. It existed without. This is, it's so ridiculous, man. Look, everybody was basically talking like this was like Cody Jarrett. They was calling him Cody Jarrett. Why would you be calling the guy Cody Jarrett? That was one of the number one things about him. Oh, Cody's going to make himself world champion. Cody's going to do all this stuff. Basically saying that Cody was the front man for the whole goddamn shabazzle. It was him that put, kind of his face and name on it, the throne breaker. He was that guy. Everybody else just wanted to have their own space without going to WWE. It was Cody that kind of created the tribalism of AEW versus WWE, and that part is a fact. Because he was the guy who had gotten the furthest outside of Jericho. So it was crazy. Here's another one. Yikes. You left WWE, dyed your hair, attached yourself to the hottest thing in pro wrestling at the time, got what you wanted out of it, Killer Juice's momentum, won an obsolete belt, and then parlayed that into an EVP position. It's honestly impressive. Killer Juice's momentum. I guess he means Juice Robinson. Look, Juice Robinson sucks. The only thing about Juice Robinson is that apparently he either got enough game, enough money, or enough dick to get Tony Storm. That's the only good thing about Juice Robinson. All that fake Macho Man shit that he's been going through. And now he's another faceless, nameless member of the Bullet Club. Fuck Juice Robinson. All right? And I'm not just jealous. I honestly didn't like him before I knew he married Tony Storm. So a lot of this stuff is just people just being haters. Absolutely hating. Which is pretty funny. Somebody says, without you hitching your wagon to Kenny and the Bucks, you wouldn't be in the position you're in now. There is some point to that. I mean, he was kind of courted into going into Bullet Club, but that's the reason. Like, the Bullet Club basically attached themselves to whoever came to Japan. Adam Cole comes to Japan, he's in Bullet Club. Jeff Jarrett comes to Japan, he's in Bullet Club. It's like, oh, come on. You have no fucking standards. You're just going to let everybody in anyway. And people are telling him that, like, look, Cody didn't even want to join Bullet Club. Look, it doesn't matter anyway. Doesn't matter? Not really. Somebody says it's literally on record that you weren't even all in on AEW and considering WWE. Oh, Jesus. Oh, Jesus. Cody is really insecure and didn't move on. He makes these types of tweets every time, and I don't understand why he always wants to take the spotlight from people who really built the company, even more than him. Did you read the fucking tweet? Did you even read the damn thing? Jesus, he just said some of the infrastructure in place. That's really all he said, man. Why is people so angry at this guy? Jesus H. Christ. Oh my goodness. This dude. Oh, here's another one. I had to translate this one from Macedonian. I guess that's Greek. Does a man ever shut up? Brother left. Oh, you're a bitch. Mother, we need you. Don't tell us something important. Just shut up, brother. Don't tell us something important. That's just translation, but that's just funny. The direct translation probably wasn't going to be that bad, but Jesus Christ, the Google Translate is awful. Hold on. This is why people, including myself, love Dustin more than you and Dream 100. What the fuck? Oh my Lord. Oh God. Oh man. There's a picture of Abraham Simpson talking to the children. Gathering gathering the Nightmare Factory trainees for the 50th time this week to tell them the story of how he single-handedly created AEW. He didn't say that. He really didn't say that. Ha ha, this guy's an insecure idiot. Good riddance, fuck off. Oh my word. Oh my word. And everybody's posting like the different articles about Tony Khan really creating AEW and how it was his idea since childhood and everything. It was nice. This is nonsense, of course, but it's pretty funny to me. I'm entertained. This man thinks he's special. I know he was helpful in launching AEW, but to say it wouldn't exist without him and Brandy, LMAO, he's deluded motherfucker. Oh, God. This is great. This is great. Wouldn't exist without you, my brother. Put your hand on your heart and say you would be able to sell out All In without Kenny, Bucks, and Coda. I dare you. You are a big part of it. We get it. But saying it wouldn't exist without you, pipe down there, a little cowboy. I mean, you know, he's getting too big for his britches. So you gotta put him back in his place. Cody getting a little too big for his britches. Got to put him back in his place every once in a while. Somebody kind of corrected his tweet a little bit by saying that the facts are all out there. Without Tony Khan, Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, Miss Matt, who is the Young Bucks' wife, Brandy Rhodes, Jericho, Adam Page, and myself, AEW wouldn't exist. We're all pioneers. Basically, they just said the same thing he said, but framed it better so that it wouldn't seem like Cody was giving himself too much credit, that it was a group effort, which is what he said. But he said it in a way where, unless you read the entire tweet and were paying attention, it made it come across like he's saying, without me and Brandy, it wouldn't exist. Which, I get it. It's a miscommunication, but, I mean, did they stop teaching how to read in schools? Because there's a lot of illiterate people on this internet. It's crazy, though. Real crazy. This one's pretty funny because the hatred for Brandy far exceeds the hatred for Cody. It wouldn't have existed without Cody, yes, but Brandy was more like a tumor than a vital organ, to make the comparison of necessary parts. They'll never stop hating Brandy. Look, Brandy is one of the most useless people on the planet, if we're being honest. I mean, she's a very beautiful young lady. She's very enterprising. She's very ambitious. For Christ's sake, she's so useless. There's nothing that Brandy can do that somebody else could not have done better. You know? So, I don't know. Outside of making sure Cody's teeth is perfectly plastic, I don't know what Brandy does. I have absolutely no idea. They have a beautiful baby, so I guess she did produce something of worth, was the child. But other than that, I fail to see how Brandy did anything, you know, personally. Yeah, I don't know. I guess the first black executive, I guess that meant something, because they're kind of positioned as being a progressive wrestling company, which is how they started. You know, that was really the big buzz behind AEW. It kind of started getting political, where it was kind of like the very uber progressive. We were going to pay women the same as men, and they were going to get more time. Women were going to get an opportunity to main events. All this sort of stuff was coming out of AEW. We were going to do insurance and all this kind of stuff was coming out of AEW. While the mean old WWF were Trump supporters and Republicans and all that kind of shit. And that stuff started to float around. McMahon's worked with the Republicans and all that shit. So that was part of the marketing of AEW. There's going to be a good old-fashioned progressive wrestling company, and we see that didn't last. That didn't last long at all. It still tries to be. You know, they brought in the first transgender wrestler on national television and had Sonny Kiss as one of the first people to sign on. And then they kind of pushed Nyla Rose. They still push Nyla Rose way too much. But slowly but surely, both Nyla Rose and Sonny Kiss were elbowed to the margins when they probably should have been from the first place, because they were not TV ready at the time. Here's another one. Mate, stop pushing your wife. She's on the same level as David Flair and just as likable. That's mean, man. That's mean. Why do we have to say mean stuff about Brandy? Wait, did I just say mean stuff about Brandy? Never mind. Never mind. I'm not gonna look. Brandy's useless. All right. She's so useless. God. Somebody created a list. Main reasons AEW exists. Number 1, the Bullet Club's massive success from the beginning. 2, meaning Cody's business savvy and work. 3, Kenny versus Okada. 4, All In working out. None of that makes sense. All right. Who cares about the Bullet Club being massive success? They were massive success in Japan. And in the United States, they were in Ring of Honor. And Ring of Honor didn't even have TV. Okay, so I wouldn't even go that far. Cody's business savvy and work, that helps. But the financing, he needed the money. And Tony Khan was the money. Kenny versus Okada, who cares about this? It's a wrestling match. You know, that's just it. Kenny versus Okada is a wrestling match. It's a series of wrestling matches. You know, very few wrestling matches have actually changed the business. Now, if you want to give any match a lot of credit for AEW, probably Kenny Omega versus Chris Jericho in Japan. More than likely. And this was crazy because Jericho said he actually called Vince before he did it. And Vince told him to do it. That he probably needed to do it. So the Warlord actually should get a lot of credit for this too. Either Vince, you hated him so much you wanted to watch anything else. Or he gave you Chris Jericho by saying, Jericho, go do that match in Japan. I think that's a great idea for you, for your career. And it rejuvenated Chris Jericho and led to him joining AEW and being the most recognizable name, not MVP, but one of the founders of the company, being the first top star. So, yeah, give the Warlord some credit. We're gonna give Vince some credit on this one, okay? I know this gonna piss people off. I'm gonna give Chris some credit because why not? Fuck it. We giving Okada credit for something he had nothing to do with. He had nothing to do with this. Nothing, literally. He probably didn't even know what was going on. He's such a Russell robot. He probably wasn't even paying attention. Okay, so now we have Meltzer's version of events. It's pretty lengthy, but it comes from the Wrestling Observer newsletter online. It says, besides 20 years of shows, by far the most valuable show for AEW purposes is the company now owns the rights to All In. I guess it's when they bought Ring of Honor. The spiritual predecessor to AEW. A show that the Young Bucks and Cody Rhodes financed but used ROH production team in return for ROH owning the future broadcast rights to the show. AEW had been unable to use footage in documentary form when telling the story of the formation of the company. Cody Rhodes likes to tell the story that All In came from his bet with me and led to AEW, while Tony Khan's version is that it came from a meeting with Kevin Riley, who was in charge of TNT, and told him how much money WWE was going to make with their next TV deal. And Khan knew that at the end of 2018 and early 2019, a lot of marketable talent would be having their contracts expire, enough that it would be possible to build the nucleus of a great in-ring wrestling company that would appeal to lapsed fans and newer non-WWE fans and even some WWE fans. However, even in the meetings with TNT that led to getting television, the success of All In and crowd excitement and crowd size for a show built around the talent Khan felt he could deliver was pushed hard by Khan as proof there was a large enough audience out there to make it viable. No matter what your own version is of the birth of AEW, All In was the proof that it was at least possibly viable, and there was an audience wanting this style of wrestling with these particular wrestlers. So, that is, of course, the thing that makes the most truth, So, there it is. That's kind of true. Cody took up the challenge from Dave Meltzer, and so he created the proof of concept that created AEW by saying, hey, I believe we can do it. And maybe he didn't really want to get involved with Tony Khan. I don't know the ins and outs of that part, whether Cody wanted to do business with Tony Khan or not, or what the bits and pieces of that, what the nuts and bolts of it. And Tony Khan was able to secure television, but he used All In to say, hey, this is the crowd size these guys can draw. we can get these particular names that they believe that they could get with the money that they had. And, this is what we believe we can draw in terms of TV ratings or whatever. You have to lay all that stuff out. You have to lay out all the business stuff. And that led to the creation of AEW. But to say Cody is not an integral piece is ridiculous. And, saying that, it's funny. But again, this is all because of a miscommunication. Let's see. It would have existed. It would have happened. History would have been made good or bad without him. His ego is unchecked. He is greater in his own mind and a lot less in the public's. So this creates a bit of a thread. So people rightly created the concept or reminded this previous poster that Cody's vision led to All In, which created AEW. Somebody says that's Cody's story. It's all Kool-Aid. Yeah, this is so humorous. Like, look, yeah, Cody got a big ego. I think most people do. Is he overrating what he actually did? I mean, who the hell knows? We don't know. I don't know the nuts and bolts of this thing. I'm pretty sure Tony Khan didn't just stand there with his dick in his hand and money in one hand and the dick in the other and didn't do anything. It's like I'm sure people like Jericho didn't just show up and say, sign a contract and then went home and said, call me when you got TV. Everybody pitched in ideas and everybody did stuff to say to him. And I don't know what Brandy did. Maybe Brandy had the coloring scheme. Maybe she came up with the logo. Who knows? But, Tony Khan had the money. But you think he really would have named a company All Elite Wrestling, knowing that there was a group of guys calling themselves the Elite in Japan and they weren't going to be involved with this wrestling company? It certainly would have been called something else. Now, Tony Khan has enough money that he probably could have bought into another wrestling company. He certainly could have launched a whole new company if he wanted to. But would it have had the success of AEW? No. Would it have been AEW? No. It would have been something completely different. Now, in being a little bit more, I don't know, I guess you could say going a little bit deeper into this, I found just some people on Reddit trying to give Brandy some credit. So I don't feel like is it fair to just end this video with talking about how terrible Brandy is? Yes, it really is. But since I found this, I'm going to bring it to the attention of my audience because why not? So people are talking about Brandy Rhodes. This is from Reddit. Somebody says, it's definitely revisionist history to include Brandy in the list of people who helped create AEW. Somebody says, in front of the camera, sure, but behind the scenes, she was involved in goddamn everything, it seemed, especially making the live experience important for every fan, families with disabilities, autism, etc. She may not have founded it, but a lot of the good faith was generated from her brokering behind the scenes deals. Interesting. I didn't know that, and actually I forgot about that. I forgot how Cody and Brandy were integral into AEW's philanthropy. And when Brandy left, Amanda Huber took over her job, if I remember correctly. So that's just me saying off the top of my head, because I'm not entirely sure, but I think that's what's the announcement when they left. So somebody says she was absolutely perfect in that made-up role they gave her and cooking on her cooking show. And what are we talking about? So they're talking about the shot of Brandy. Even when I'm trying to give her credit, people are shitting on her. So people are arguing that her chief brand officer, the chief brandy officer, as people have said, chief brandy officer, is not a real job. But it's the same job Stephanie McMahon had in WWE. It is. And now Stephanie is the CEO. Somebody says, she did a lot of great work as a brand ambassador and for the women's division. I loved heels, and some names like Jade Cargill would have been better showcased from her. Also unsure how unrelated this is, but the t-shirts aren't as interesting anymore now that the Rhodes are gone. We also did see more women on TV back then. Then we fizzled and flailed with just Brit. Now it's whatever. So I'm guessing they're trying to give Brandy some credit for the black women or the women in general. And people are reminding this person that Kiera Hogan and Jade Cargill, etc., and Athena are now on TV. Are they? Are they really? I haven't seen Kiera Hogan on TV in a long time. I haven't seen Athena on TV in a long time. Now, they've probably been on Rampage, and I don't watch Rampage really, so excuse me. I'm going to bow out of this part of the conversation. Somebody says, no other women besides Brandy, Big Swole, and Kong have left the company. But they also haven't been used. So there's a lot of women in AEW who are under contract and have not been used. They just aren't there. Now, that was people trying to give credit to Brandy. And then it almost immediately went back to Cody and whether Cody can make his mind up about joining AEW or not. Because the Bucks, they were all in. I'm pretty sure that's Young Bucks and their version of history. And that's the thing about all of this stuff that really kind of is incredible, is that there's the version of history that is real that nobody will ever know. Then there's Tony Khan's version of history, where him and Kevin Riley cook up this idea, and then he happens to run into the Bucks. Then there's the Bucks idea where they were all in from the beginning, and they were totally down with joining up on Tony Khan and his idea, or at least using Tony Khan's money, but they couldn't talk Cody into doing it. And then there's the Cody idea where it all came from All In. And it's like, at this point, I don't think it matters. But at the same point, all of it matters. It took all of that to happen. And whether Cody fully believed in it or not is not really important because he believed in himself enough to launch All In. So maybe he's saying his hesitance to get, if that were true, let's say that he was hesitant to get involved with Tony Khan and the All Elite package as it was presented to him. For starters, we don't know how it was presented to him. We don't know. Second, Tony Khan never ran a wrestling company before. So maybe he's kind of like, we could do this, or he could just be like, we could do this ourselves, guys. We don't need Tony Khan. Which, might have been his idea. It might have been, look, you guys want to do this, I'll go back to WWE, which is what a lot of people are saying. Oh, Cody wanted to go back to WWE always. Maybe. Or maybe he was saying, look, we could do this ourselves. We ran All In and it worked out. Maybe we could continue to run shows like that. Maybe a yearly show or maybe run an independent promotion or something. We don't know how it was pitched to him. But it certainly took everybody to get it off the ground. And Cody gave everybody credit just in a very, a way that was not as intelligent as it should have been. It was a miscommunication. And from that, we've got, and this is not even the first time he said this. He said it again in April. He said that it wouldn't have happened without him. So it's interesting that people are still arguing about the creation of AEW because that's really the magic of it. People are enamored with the magic of AEW being created. Mainly because, now we're 3 years in and they're wishing for those halcyon days of the Elite all being together and all being friends. And now they're here, in 2 years of Cody doesn't do business with the Bucks and he doesn't really talk to the Bucks. He doesn't really do anything with the Bucks. To eventually Cody is gone. And now CM Punk is there. And now there's talk of CM Punk having problems with, these same guys, which will be Cody and not Cody, but the Bucks and Omega and all of them. And it's just interesting, But the halcyon days of everybody working together to build this revolution, this progressive wrestling revolution, that's what everybody's in love with. Unfortunately, like all good revolutions, they eat their own. Every revolution in history eventually eats their own. Eventually there's some infighting. Because once you get to the position, now all of a sudden you're in the position. You're not the underdog anymore. And AEW for a long time now has been saying, we're the best wrestling company. We beat Raw in the 18 to 49s and we beat SmackDown for 15 minutes on the 18 to 49, whatever the fuck. It's like, okay, well now you're at the top. If that's how you see yourself. You're at the top now. You've done what you were intending to do. And now the infighting begins. which is the real test of the revolution. How do you deal with the infighting? And AEW is going through that right now, because not everybody's going to be on the same board. You know, people was all for getting here. You know, they wanted to make it viable so that they could get to the point that it's at now. But now everybody's kind of going to get out for self. You know, the selfishness is starting to come in. Cody selfishly went back to WWE. That's what he wanted to do. But you could argue that maybe it was the selfishness of others that pushed him out. So we don't know. But we do know that Cody, there was a miscommunication that led to these tweets. And these people being very angry at Cody, calling him a narcissist, saying that he's a traitor and a quitter. All of that stuff is pretty hilarious. Cody is famously a massive mark for himself. So, of course, he's going to indulge in that praise. That's insane. He's a massive self-mark. So, what do you guys think? Like, share, and subscribe. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace out.